land killed by pheasant, I noticed how you talked a lot about natural disaster helped you feel closer to your homeland. Like you were talking about the floods of '93. So do you think human change is inevitable considering these issues? I mean, look at the stuff we're already dealing with. We have 100-year floods are occurring more often. We have a lot more tornadoes, and the polar vortexes are getting worse.
Really?
You
It's
think
so
so?
balmy out today.
I know, and you can't tell right now, which is crazy. Should have been here last week. It's freezing.
I love people's like they look out there and oh,
Oh yeah, it's
global
terrible.
warming.
I know.
Yeah.
It's not
Polar
right.
vortex. It's just, you know.
Right, those don't exist.
Yeah.
Do we change with the are we gonna have to change with the seasons, or does this? It almost seems like we have to have something terrible happen in order for
Yeah.
us to change. Do you? I don't know. I guess. What are your opinions on any of that?
Is there any
Like,
hope?
Yeah,
is the
I mean,
question.
yeah. Is there anything is there anything we should do? Is there a point in doing anything at all?
Well, it goes back to this small versus large thing. And actually thinking about Isley too in the Star Thrower. Have you all read that? You know,
Mhm.
yeah. There are a lot of things we can't control about our destiny as a species and the destiny of this planet. I read about that a little bit in a piece called Loess, Geese Don't Winter in Paradise in Man Killed by Pheasant. There's this little thing at the end about how our planet is moving towards Vega, the star. The sun will expand, the earth will be destroyed, so the end is coming at some point, or, but not yet. Not yet. And, some look at that and they think, on our current course, we're headed towards disaster, and indeed we might be.
Yeah.
But that makes what we do right now in the present all the more important. For some people, that's a reason an excuse for paralysis and self-centered behavior. Right? Well, it's going to be destroyed. I might as well just take what I can right now. But that's not how I see it. I don't think that's how many other people see it.
Do you think you have a different perspective on it because you're an artist? Like, do you feel like you have an even greater obligation when you play that role?
Yeah, I'd like to see art restored to its proper place at the center of society and culture and politics.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Absolutely.
But how do you do that? I mean, if we can't even, there's people, I mean, you meet them at the seminar, and there are people who come there like, oh, this is the Loess Hills,
I know.
There are people who have lived in and on the Loess Hills their entire life that have no concept they are in the Loess Hills.
Yeah.
So, how do we what's the role of the artist in making people who, we have to make all of the world care to have an impact on the prairie, but if you can't even make the people who live on the actual land themselves even not care, but even just be aware of it, what hope is there?
Well, as a writer, one thing you can do is tell stories that engage people and not turn them off. That don't further this us-them rhetoric, right? But the other thing is you can take the stuff that you normally think of as negative forces in our effort to try to restore the hills, things like greed, and turn that back, into a advocate. Ecotourism is something that's growing all over, and I was down in Florida, a few years ago, and that west side of Florida, which doesn't get the attention that the Atlantic side does, now they call themselves Florida's nature coast. And the manatees are at the center of that. Now, there's all sorts of problems with that too, because people are all going swimming with the manatees, and But that place has redefined itself according to its natural characteristics, and a species that was on the verge of extinction, right? And now their business and environmentalists are involved in preservation efforts. Those things are. That's, you look at the Loess Hills and you think that's what makes this place distinct. Council Bluffians talk all the time about how upset they are that Omaha treats them like the little sibling, right? And calling us Council Tucky and all this stuff, Yeah. And my response is, okay.
I'm from Kentucky.
Right.
That really hurts me.
I know, and that's the other thing.
It's so bad.
Yeah,
So many levels.
denigrating Kentucky on top of it, right? We're throwing us all together. And it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, my response is, well, let's do something about it. You know, let's take what's distinct about Council Bluffs and start to protect it, and start to, you know, advertise it. And, you know, the Loess Hills are what make Council Bluffs distinct, not the casinos, not Google, you know, it's certainly not our poverty rates, which are extremely high. Let's find another way into economic growth, and the hills could provide that. People who come, and we've had conferences there, people who come and they go up to like Hitchcock Nature Center. I mean, they are blown away by the beauty of these hills. So let's get more people out there, and that's, you know, that'll help the economy. But we take other things like, again, patriotism. You know, people are like, well, I really get upset about how Omaha's represented. There was a controversy a while ago about when the Olympic swim meets were, swim competitions were here. You remember that, the tryouts? There was that advertisement that talked about, put down Omaha in some way. There was a big blow up about that. It's like, oh, no. Once again, we're being treated, you know, in a condescending fashion by, you know, the establishment. Well, you know, why don't we do something about it again, instead of when we have football games showing cornfields? Why don't we show prairie? Why don't we show the Loess Hills? Why don't we show off the defining beauty of this land? So that's the other strategy. And again, storytellers, poets, artists can be in that conversation and doing that. I mean, that's why I write the books I do. Is I do a lot of traveling here and speaking here, but I do a lot of it elsewhere. And I try to, you know, show that in my work, what matters to me about this place. And, you know, that's all we can do, and we hope for the best. But I'm not going to stop doing that because, you know, of despair, even though that's very real. It's a very real challenge.
And I think that, you know, that reality from the artist plus the business community. I mean, nature needs business to fully recognize the potential that is in ecosystem services.
Yeah.
Like you wanna protect against floods, restore prairies.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
Exactly.
Like we don't need to build big walls.
No,
like, make more prairies.
We don't. We have one of the most legendary rivers in the world going through our communities. What are we doing about that? Well, one thing we can do, which has been done unfortunately, is tearing up Loess Hills and using them as landfill for riverside business development. You know, we need to think a little bit more creatively there. It's not about storefronts and shops, and people will pay to be in that, you know, up with the river, with the prairies and the savannas that surrounded it. They'll come from a long ways to have that experience. So let's look at that too. But yeah, it just makes economic sense too.
So how do we get into that subject of agriculture and the role that all this plays in economic development? And, you know, Iowa doesn't have wetlands anymore, but we have corn. How do you make the argument to a farmer? This is like a $1 million question. Like, how do you tell a farmer that there's greater profit long term in having that land be wetlands?
Well, there's a piece in the Tallgrass Prairie Reader by Stephen Apfelbaum who makes that very case. He restored farmland in Wisconsin to prairie, and it was right next to agricultural land. And he talks about these sometimes heated discussions he had with his neighbors about whether they were weeds or not, or whether people would come in and hunt on it, and which he said no to, you know. But in the end, the land kind of made the case for him that farmer's daughter got married in the prairie that he restored because it's so beautiful. And when that farmer retired, I mean, there was even more appreciation for it. But I don't know, you know, it's hard because the economic situation, as you know, is set up to encourage that destruction. Farm insurance policies, you know, huge. Ethanol is a problem, right? even, you know, and this is controversial, I don't know if I want to say this on tape, but I'll go ahead and say it, wind farms. You know, we've destroyed the prairie here, and now we're gonna farm what's left of the prairie wilderness, which is the sky. That's the only thing left. And if you drive on Highway 80, you know this, it looks like Oklahoma during the oil boom. Is that what we really want? Is that what sustainability looks like in Iowa, or is this just a quick fix to continue our addiction to that, to energy consumption? So we need new models, we need new, but I don't know, I think that one-on-one conversation, you know, and again, art can play a very, very important and non-threatening role in changing people, because it, like all good art, I mean, look at this, you know, not just this issue, but other social issues. David Sedaris is a great example. You know, major humorist, very funny man. You look at his book, though, his first memoir, Naked, there's some big social issues in there. But he talks about it with humor. He writes about characters, people he cares about, people he doesn't care about. You get engaged by individuals in individual places, and then once you're inside that perspective, you have the possibility of changing their mind. So yeah, I mean, that's, art plays a role, but you also have to get out and talk to people, visit communities, visit libraries, give talks. I mean, I'm talking from the perspective of a writer here, but all of that helps, and you hope it spreads out. You don't know, but you hope it does. And I know in the Loess Hills there are a lot of people that want to do the right thing. You know, they want to restore their land and prairie, but they don't have the money. You know, their family depends on that for their economic well-being. So how do we come up with creative ways to deal with that? Well, we have land banks, which is a great program where people move, you know, allow people that are, you know, grazing sheep on one area to move into a prairie area and graze on that, while that land, that other land, that overworked land, heals. And coming up with those kind of creative relationships so that people can do the right thing if they want to, if they're attached to it. It's just a matter of finding them and giving them the means to do that and still support themselves and their family.
It's really hard, you know. When I was at the seminar this past summer, and I went to Trapple Orchard, which was one of the excursions you could go on, and we went to this family's orchard. And it was just south of Ottawa, and their place was, I mean, they were trying to do it right. They were trying to do an orchard the right way, but they were surrounded by neighbors who were spraying, and it was destroying all what they had. You know, right. So it doesn't. They were trying to do the right thing. They were trying to even have really nice. I mean, the way these folks were talking about their neighbors who were destroying their livelihood was so nice and kind. Like, you know, we're trying to have these very neighborly conversations about how they are destroying what we're trying to grow here. But you hit that wall. Like, so how do you get your neighbor? I mean, it's one thing for you to change. It's another thing to convince your neighbor that they should change too.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, in some cases you have to get aggressive, you know, and laws have to be changed. But the more people we have that are doing the right thing, the more noise they're going to make. It was recently in the Loess Hills. You probably know about this. There was the potential of that designation of it being a federal reserve, or how did it work?
Kind of like making like a Loess Hills National Park.
Not a national park, but it would have been like a national preserve.
Yeah.
I don't know what the designation
or wilderness,
was.
The other.
It's a national park. It would have been administrated by the national parks, but it wasn't a national park.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And you know, people from the Nature Conservancy were involved in that, and others who were involved in that, and they went up and down, gave meetings. The whole thing there was that no one's going to have their land taken away from them. You know, it wasn't going to go off the tax rolls. It wasn't threatening private ownership at all. It was federal assistance, right? Money and scientific know-how to help those who want to choose to restore their land to do so. And then, of course, you know, once you mention the federal government, you know, I won't say it when I want to say it, but it's unfortunate perspectives end up getting provoked, right? And they're very noisy, and they're very angry and aggressive,
exactly.
and there's a lot of bullying, you know, that I saw at some of these meetings. They're shouting down others. And then the result was people stopped. I mean, they withdrew the proposal, right? And they're gonna come back a little bit later, hopefully. But when that proposal was withdrawn, it was interesting. I have friends that own about 80 acres in the Loess Hills, and you know, and others along the way. They were really upset. But they hadn't gone to the meetings. You know, they were happy about that possibility, but hadn't really advocated. And their response was, these people just took away my choice. You know, they're all about how, you know, federal government imposing on my right to choose. Well, that took away their choice if they wanted to restore the land. So now, you know, the hope is with that failure, maybe these landowners who do want to do it will come forward and start to advocate, and that seems to be hopefully what's happening. But I don't know. We'll see. But the more people that are engaged in that conversation, the more there's pushback and political pressure. That's really what it's all about. You got to vote. You know, young people have got to get out there and vote, and they have to make their. You know, this sounds like a.
Well, I think only 13% of 18 to 21-year-olds voted.
It's pathetic.
It was really bad.
So you got to we have to put pressure on, you know, on that way, but, which isn't artful always or friendly. So there has to be that aspect too.